I totally underestimated how much fabric I would need. Welcome to Cosplayland, I am Alice and today I'm going to be doing some 1890s, 1910s undergarments for Victorian clothes. I know it's not my usual content and no, I'm not going to be changing into historical clothing anytime soon, but I thought for the next project I'm going to be making it would be better to have some kind of undergarment, and this is actually great if you're trying to do anything which is similar to that period. I am not going to be using my antique sewing machine. It is very pretty, but I think that would be a little bit of time consuming, and as I said, I'm not trying to be recreating anything historical, but I am using patterns based on historical patterns, in particular the National Couture and other similar magazines that were very fashionable at the time, and that's how you learned how to use those patterns. I will be sewing my undergarments with a normal sewing machine, but feel free to use any other method that you want if you want it to feel more historically accurate. For this project I will be using my own patterns, and I will leave you a link in the description where you can download them yourself if you want to do something similar to this. Let's get started! And after one of the worst intros in my history on YouTube, I'm gonna try again, and I'm gonna be starting just tracing the pattern on my fabric. As usual, I recommend you to use some weights or cats or anything you have around in your house to make sure your patterns don't move. I decided to start with the chemise. These patterns in general are very large, and I had to place one at a time. Both the front and the back of my chemise are the same, and I'm just going to cut one of the parts and then I'll cut the other. Then I moved on to the drawers. Remember that if you are using a cat, you may want to move that tail out of the way when you are cutting. Finally, for the petticoat, I just measured the lengths that I needed instead of having a very big pattern to work with. My petticoat is going to have two tiers. The bottom one is about 3 meters long and the top one is about 2 meters long. And of course, I graciously cut this part as well. Told you, as delicate as a flower. I also measured a strip of fabric that was as long as my waist, and I was ready to start sewing. For the chemise, first I placed my front and back pieces together, and then I sewed the sides and the shoulders. Okay, so I'm doing a first mock-up, and I think this sleeve technically is historically accurate because they used to be like super high, but it's like so high it's cutting here, it's super uncomfortable. Definitely I should have added some seam allowances, and even this is just very small, like half a centimeter is too much and it's pulling up, so I'm just gonna put this a little bit down and make it more into standards from nowadays. Also don't worry about this part, this is going to be gathered, but other than that I think the shape is correct. I only took a few centimeters off the original pattern, and it's still quite high, but feel free to cut it a bit shorter if that's what you want. And I trimmed all the excess fabrics on my seams because I'm going to be finishing them with French seams. It is also more historically accurate, and it reinforces the whole piece as it was worn daily in the past. I always make sure to iron all my pieces as I go to get a better finish. And it's easier to iron your hem before you start sewing. Using the longest stitches on my machine, I sewed 2 lines of basting stitches to the front and back collar. Then I pulled the bobbin thread and I gathered the fabric until it was as long as my yoke piece. I placed it on top of my collar and I sewed it in place. I folded the yoke around my collar and then I used to stitch it in place. I'm going to be using a ruffler foot to do all my gathers. And I am adding some eyelet lace to be able to insert some ribbon later on. I'm using a zigzag stitch and I'm doing this for all of the pieces of my 3-piece undergarment set. For a better look at the back, I'm trimming all the excess fabric as well. Now the trim is ready, I can add it to all my hems with a zigzag stitch. I didn't want any ruffles for the collar, so I did a strip just for it. And I started attaching all the pieces to the collar. Finally, I inserted my ribbon with the help of a safety pin. The petticoat was my next stop, and I started by attaching the ruffle to the bottom tier. Once again, I'm sewing 2 rows of basting stitches so I can gather my fabric. And I am pulling the threads to gather my fabric until it matches the top tier. I just quickly wanted to show you guys that I messed up and I did them too short. They should go to my ankles and it's obviously too short. I think when I measured, I did it from my hips. It should be about this long. And I didn't. And they're supposed to go to the waist. They are not gathered yet. And I'm gonna have to add a piece of fabric and just do something because that's definitely too short. Can't wear these in the 1890s. So let's fix it. I decided the best way to fix this was adding an extra piece of fabric and doing some tucks on the fabric to just disguise the cut between them. Doing tucks or folds were actually a stylistic choice and they were very common on petticoats and in drawers. To do them, you just have to fold the fabric and then when it gets folded again, it creates these ridges that give more structure and a little bit of interest to the garment. I sewed the side of my petticoat, but I left a gap of about 20 centimeters at the top so I can get these on easily. I did a small cut on the side, so I will be able to just fold this end and make it look neat. I'm just going to top stitch it. And similar to what I did before, I just gathered the fabric of my waist so it was as long as my waistband before I sew it in place. Then I just needed to finish my waistband with a top stitch. I chose cotton tape for my waistband because it is stronger and this part is going to have the weight of the skirt. Once I inserted the ribbon through my eyelets, the petticoat was done. And the only piece left to do is the drawers. I kind of need that piece to finish. Can I have it? Can I have it? Can I have it? Give it to me. As I was saying, the last part to do was the drawers, and to do them using my princess seams, I'm just going to be doing the sides. I actually forgot to leave some space to get my hips through it, so I had to do a little trick later on to fix it, but it's okay. Just a quick recap. First, you sew your pieces wrong size together. You cut the excess fabric, iron the seams, sew it right sides together, and iron again. And now repeat the whole process for the crotch. Just quickly mention, these are actually supposed to be worn with an opening at the crotch, and you want to do the hem before you close them at the bottom if that's your choice, but personally I'm going to close them because I may be wearing this on a stage and I don't think that's exactly the look that I want to be giving to the judges if I ever go just showing my cosplay with this. Once again, I'm going to be gathering my fabric so it fits my waistband. Just this time, I decided to make my waistband as big as my hips, and all the extra fabric is just going to be gathered. It doesn't sit as flat, but it is a way of wearing them and it's pretty comfortable, so it was the better solution rather than trying to fix the place where I had gone wrong. And after I attached my ruffles to the leg opening, my 3-piece undergarment set was finished. I hope you enjoyed this project. I know it's a little bit different from my usual content, but I really had fun doing it. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see other projects like this. And remember that you can download the patterns for this project on the link in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you would like to support me. And remember that my Patreons get access to all these videos early, as well as patterns and many other things that you won't find anywhere else. You can also find a lot of extra content on my Instagram, and there you can also find lots of pictures of my cute cats that I post daily, as well as short videos and photos of the final dresses when they are finished. I hope you have a great day, and I will be seeing you next time. Bye! Can I have this fabric? No? I can't?
Kitana, stop eating the flowers.